according to the family stories and memories and archives and footage and so on. You know, they did have this incredible uplifting outlook on life. I mean, if only I could aspire to being as positive as those guys were. But Diana, we were kind of, it was very close to the bone. She's a sort of very indefatigable kind of extraordinary force of nature, and we were terrified. Jonathan and I, when we in fact we didn't even want to see it with her. We were going to sit down and watch it, and then we both ran away and left her to watch it. And at the end, we were kind of waiting, and we went in and said, "So what do you think?" And she said, "I never would have worn that hat." And that's Diana. I mean, she famously sort of never cries. The fact she said, it's the only time I've ever really cried was when my nanny gave me when my mother gave me a kettle 3 years on the trot for Christmas. You know, it's just like she is that person. You know, she didn't flinch and never did and stayed true, and she is a real inspiration. Without kind of sanctifying her in any way, that's who she is.
So when you came on board, you kind of tweaked the script slightly, didn't you? You kind of wanted to celebrate the people.
Yeah, I mean,
or their fighting and spirit.
Yeah, what I wanted to do really was to create a world for the film to exist in, which felt like you're going to start watching this incredible very uplifting sort of Lean-esque, I don't know, very like a really upbeat 60s movie where there's lots of movement and music and great and it's very nostalgic, and you think, oh, I'm going to be for a great ride, and there's lots of movement, camera movement, and so on and so forth, and I really saw it in terms of movement and then a total inertia. And that was, I suppose that was, and the other thing that really appealed to me about the story that I suppose I was involved with developing the strand of was the fact that they were these incredible pioneers. I mean, they really truly were the first people to live outside the hospital system in that condition, and you know, it's when he says to her, you know, get me out of hospital. When she says, you know, when she says, what can I do to make life better for you? And he says, get me out. It's, you know, at that time, it's like saying, put me on the moon. It really was a huge achievement, and something that you wouldn't consider doing for a second if you really thought about the implications. And so it was that aspect, and the Teddy Hall character, again, all true. Everything that he built, and that sort of Heath Robinsonian approach to living life 2 minutes away from death. I just found I really wanted to explore and mine that sense of that sense of it.
Mm. So Tom Hollander, I think, is fantastic.
You know, everyone around you. And we had, I mean, on this, you know, we had the most incredible DOP. You know, Rob Richardson, who's made some incredible movies with, you know, Stones and you know, Natural Killers, and he did Shutter Island, Martin Scorsese, and just The Aviator with Martin Scorsese, and just you know, brilliant cinematographer. So I was, but I did really love the way that Peter was a huge mentor to me, and I love his style and the way that he worked, in the sense that when he starts shooting a scene, he doesn't ever feel like he's got the answers at the beginning. It really is a voyage of discovery, and when he works on a scene and works with actors, it's very much about mining it and trying so many different variations and trying different things, and that was a huge, you know, I thought, wow, you know, I love what you do with the camera, but I love what you do with the camera and the way it dances with the performances of the actors, and so that, you know, he was very much a kind of mentor character.
Cool. Okay, we have time for some questions. If you have one, please raise your hand. Yeah, can we get the microphone down to the front, please? There's 2 questions here. Anybody else near the back? Well, do you and the young lady in the pink top?
Were there any directions that Claire and Andrew took that you didn't think of?
directions with the characters.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there was one. Yes, there was the scene on the hill where he says basically, you know, I want to let myself go now. That scene was a very tense day, and both of them have been building up to that scene because they were extraordinary together. They kept their chemistry on and off set. You know, I mean, Claire really looked after him all the time when the camera wasn't rolling, and they developed a really great relationship. But it was sort of like their own bubble, you know, and which was great. But I was very, you know, with Jonathan as well. We were very keen that scene, that they really had to go for each other, and that she had to really vent at him and feel betrayed, and then have to go off and scream and shout and come back, you know. And it was because I think they got to know each other so well, they really didn't want to go there, and we were running out of time. The light was going. We were going to South Africa the next day to do all the Africa stuff, and it was just one of those scenes. It was you know, which they didn't want to. They didn't want to play it the way that certainly that I had in mind, and probably Jonathan, and that was one. That was one. Give you one example. That was a real, very tense situation where I think there was no other time in the whole shoot where we weren't in sync, but that was just a difference of approach and where they got to as actors and characters, and what we felt was important for the story. So that was one example. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Andy. My name's Paul. Hi. I'm just wondering, your experience in the volume in motion capture, has any of that carried over into the film? How you shot it? Because I noticed some of the shots were like, especially towards the end, we're just hearing the machine and the silence and certain objects throughout the film. There was like this physical energy within it. Was that something that you carried over from mocap, or was it just?
I wouldn't say it was from the mocap stage. No, I mean because when you're working with performance capture or motion capture, you have freedom with using a virtual camera because for the most part, unless you're shooting on location with motion capture, you know, you're working with an entirely virtual camera, so you can put it any way you like. But this had obviously very, you know, this was very bound to shooting and on location, so it had its own rhythm, I suppose. So I wouldn't say that there was anything particular that I brought from the motion capture volume.
Lady in the pink, please.
Hi, Anthony. My name's Lucy. I'm a young creative myself. And when you're looking at a script and something that's obviously based on a true story, I'm just wondering, like, how do you make the choice to tell? I don't know if it's just one aspect of the story, or how do you make those choices? What you want to tell?
It's the DNA of it really does come from the script, but you can pull it in lots of different directions. You know, I mean, there is a version of this story which could have been quite, I don't know, darker, more grim, and looking at disability in a particular way. But I mean, my experience of disability, and my mum was was a special needs teacher, and she worked with a lot of disabled kids, and I grew up with disabled kids as a result. Actually, my sister suffers from multiple sclerosis, she's wheelchair bound, and actually people just want to feel like they're normal and being true. Of course they do, you know, and that's accepted, and we do, but there was this time, obviously, when people in those situations were treated as outsiders, and yet what was really important to me was this was pulling out as much humour as possible, and making it making it uplifting and not mawkish or sentimental in any way, because they were not sentimental people, and that was the sort of the key thing that was always, as I was describing about Diana and the way that she was, she just you get on with it, you get on with it and you make the best of it and have a really good time as much as you can making the best of it. And so everything in the design, so the design, the colour palette, everything was instead of it being grim, you could make a very grim version of this movie, and we wanted it to be the opposite. So the colours were, I mean, the design of the costumes are based really around Tintin and the palette of the Tintin Verger's characters in Tintin, because I felt that it had that sort of slightly, wanted them to be slightly heightened and slightly caricatured, and not in a huge way, but just ever so slightly lifting. Everything would be lifted. The music, Nitin Sawhney's great score, having those big swirls, and you know, the way the film's graded, everything was. You know, you can take the DNA of a story, but and slightly, you know, colour it in lots of different ways.
Thank you.
Before we get to the next question, are we ever going to get Tintin 2?
What's going on? I hope so. I really do. I'm really desperate. I know Peter definitely wants to make Tintin 2, but we'll have to, you know, see. We'll have to see.
Yes, you.
Hi, my name's AJ.
Hi, Adrian.
So you spoke about, first of all, I think Andrew's and Claire's chemistry was so good in this film. You spoke about how they kind of, on set, kind of she carried him around and looked after him in that way. But in terms of pre-production, how extensively did you screen test Andrew and Claire together? And did you screen test them in like a party scene, or like when he was in a bed? And how much of a gamble do you think that was?
Screen test in the sense of their finding their chemistry?
Pre-production, making sure they had the right chemistry to actually tell that story, because their chemistry was great.
Yeah, no, we did have, we had about 3 weeks to rehearse. So, I mean, this film came together, I mean, films take a long time to bring together normally, and but we had the great good fortune that they both became available. They were both our first choice for these parts. We managed to raise the money in 7 weeks. We had 7 weeks of pre-production and 7 weeks of shooting, and it literally all went like that, which is it's pretty much unheard of to get money like that. And I always have this music. Just to back up a bit. So we had a rehearsal period of about 2 to 3 weeks where we, you know, we went to St Thomas's Hospital. They came to the village where it all took place, and you know they did all that, and they just spent lots of time with each other, and then worked out how she would take care of him. Claire did a lot of work with Diana, talked about how they, you know, and then it was just this sort of period of just seeing them sort of, you know, just spending time with each other. And then the only thing we did to actually screen test, camera tests and stuff, were to see how the look for Andrew and Claire as they got older. Because I mean, you know, in actual fact, the one thing that's slightly changed from truth is that Robin lived longer than we had thought. He actually lived another 7 or 8 years. But to actually ask 2 actors to go from sort of 20s through to 60 is without it looking ridiculous, is a real ask, you know, kind of from what we probably know, prosthetics or whatever. So the only thing we actually screen tested exactly was sort of the latter looks and the prosthetic work and the makeup for both of them as they get older. And actually Diana now, if you were to meet her, I mean she's 82, or 83, she has a kind of that fire in her eyes, and that she doesn't look too much different to how Claire looks now. I mean, in terms of her energy and what her face is, and it comes through her. So yeah, so that's sort of, that's how it sort of works.
Yes, if you can get.